Hey, I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC 194. But before getting into that, I'd like to plug my own website at www.chrismoldon.com. I am an aspiring author that specializes in the fantasy genre. And on my website, you can check out blogs, which are updated every week, um, the Writers Talk web series, free short stories, and stories for sale as well. Also, my first book will be for sale on my website. It's called The Mustard Prince in the Convict Kingdom Fantasy Action Adventure, which will be available January 1st, 2016 for $8.95. On to the card. Biggest card of the year, and excuse me, I'm so a little sick. It delivered, in my opinion. A lot of stories coming out of this card, especially with Conor McGregor's just unbelievable finish over Jose Aldo. As far as bonuses go, Rockhold and Weidman earned fight of the night, while McGregor and Santos won performance of the night. Picks weren't too bad. I got 9 out of 12. The ones that I missed were Leonardo Santos versus Kevin Lee, Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman, and Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. As far as one thing to note is that Dana White did say that Conor McGregor gets an immediate title shot at the lightweight champion should he decide to move up to lightweight. Conor McGregor also said that if he moves up to lightweight, he is not vacating the featherweight title. So that is actually one of the bigger stories to come out of this as well. Conor McGregor fighting for the lightweight title is big money. And I'll probably and in this post-fight analysis, I'll be talking a lot about Conor McGregor as well. So, to start off, Conor McGregor defeated Jose Aldo by knockout 13 seconds in the first round. This was the fastest knockout in UFC title fight history. I believe it beat Ronda Rousey's. I think it's not out of I don't think it's out of line to say that McGregor's mind game seemed to work on Aldo. I felt that, and I know many others felt this too. He was very extremely aggressive just coming in. He's usually a lot more patient when he starts fights. He can actually even be something of a slow starter. But yeah, this was both a disappointing and quite honestly, I picked Aldo to win. And, it's sad not to see any of the fight happen. But it's quite honestly quite an embarrassing loss as well. After all this trash talk and whatnot, and, McGregor stealing the belt and all this other stuff, for him to get knocked out in 13 seconds in the manner that he did, disappointing. And quite honestly, to the point it was embarrassing for Aldo to the point where there's video footage of him being pretty much he was inconsolable. Like he just can't, he was just so down on himself, and you can see it. As far as the UFC is a big winner here, though, in a sense that Conor McGregor is the champion that they want. It's the champion that the lower weight divisions need. He's charismatic. He has a fan-friendly style. He's everything that you want, young. I think he's still in his 20s, in his prime. So he's everything that you want and that the UFC want in a champion. He promotes fights a lot and I don't know if he's the biggest star that the UFC has, but I think with Ronda Rousey losing in the pay-per-view before that, I think there's a good chance that Conor McGregor could very well be the UFC's biggest star moving forward. This also shows and the Weidman Rockhold fight also shows how many champions, once dominant, have been losing their titles. There was a stat actually in Bloody Elbow, an article about it, of just how many title changes there were in 2015. I mean, it was like it's just crazy, honestly. Just it's honestly just crazy how many like title or um, champions that we found to be pretty dominant, having good win streaks, having successful title defenses, losing them, and a lot of times emphatic fashion too. They don't lose close split decisions or anything. You're looking at Cain Velasquez getting guillotined by Fabricio, Conor McGregor knocking out Aldo. Who would have thought Ronda Rousey would get head kick knocked out? Chris Weidman losing, mainly by grappling, to Luke Rockhold. So it's just been a crazy year as far as titles changing hands. But yeah, I can see a potential rematch happening. Personally, I'm not fond. I'm not fond of seeing Aldo versus McGregor too. I can see them doing that, and that sucks for Frankie Edgar, who just knocked out Chad Mendes in the night before. And if McGregor doesn't move up and they give Aldo takes time off or something, next fight should be Conor McGregor, Frankie Edgar next. I'm going to be honest, too. I think besides a rematch with Aldo and Frank Edgar, there really aren't, there's Max Holloway, but in my eyes, I think Conor McGregor's biggest threat would be Edgar and maybe a rematch with Aldo. But yeah, but definitely the best thing to happen to the UFC. And for the lighter weight classes too, 145 and below. I mean, they had Rousey, of course, but they just didn't have marketable champions, and now you got Conor McGregor here. But I'm very curious to see what his next move is. Jose Aldo, there's no shortage of guys you can find. I'd give him guys coming off losses. Jeremy Stevens, Cub Swanson, maybe the loser of Jerry versus Oliveira. I would like to actually see Aldo get something of a bounce back fight. I'm very curious to see Aldo, what he's going to be like moving forward. The guy's been fighting since 2004, and he's been ravaged with injuries. This is the first time he's been knocked out, and he was knocked out cold by Conor McGregor. I mean, the way he fought him too. I mean, this is a guy that his straight left is his weapon. You don't go straight at the guy. And Aldo more or less did, and he paid dearly for it. He wasn't waiting patiently on the outside, working, didn't throw the leg kicks that we know of or anything like that. He just kind of came in rushing forward, and it cost him, But let's see if he can bounce back. This was definitely a really bad loss, so. Next fight after that, Luke Rockhold defeated Chris Weidman by TKO in the fourth round. I thought it was a pretty back and forth fight. Actually, the first round was really good with Weidman getting takedowns and whatnot. I found that the guillotine from Rockhold was such a useful weapon for Weidman not continuing to go for the takedowns. I figured the body kick would be a very useful tool for Rockhold, and it was. Weidman was starting to use it as well. I have to say, when watching this fight, it actually looked. These guys are so big for the weight class, tall and big, because Weidman's 6'2", Rockhold's 6'3", 6'4", something like that, and they're just big guys. It actually kind of looked like two heavyweights fighting each other. The fight definitely could have been stopped in the third when Rockhold got that mount and ground and pounded Weidman. The second round was all Rockhold. I thought Weidman was coming back in the third. He was using some boxing. Rockhold seemed to have, was fading a bit as well. Weidman, too, was fading a bit as well. And then Weidman goes for that spinning back kick, spinning heel kick, and just gets taken down, mounted, and pounded on. And in the fourth round, Weidman, the wrestler, gets taken down, pounded, and finished by TKO. It was a good fight. It's everything I thought it'd be. I thought the wrestling would come into play. I thought the clinch would come into play. I thought Weidman's boxing would come into play. I thought that Rockhold's kicks would come into play. I did foresee the guillotine coming into play, but it definitely was pretty much what I was thinking of when I was thinking of this fight. I didn't actually think Rockhold would be dominant on top position on Weidman and able to get mount on him. That surprised me as well. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing these guys fight sometime in the future. Not an immediate rematch. So Rockhold should probably just fight Yoel Romero next. Since Yoel was coming off the win over Jacare, and before that he beat Machida. And Weidman should probably get like Jacare next. If you want to give him like if you want to give someone like a Robert Whitaker or something, like a really big fight, you can go Whitaker versus Weidman. So he's coming off a big win. Well, Weidman Jacare probably would be make the most sense after that. Good fight. I think if Rockhold fights Yoel Romero, I'd pick Rockhold to beat Romero moving forward. Next fight, I thought Yoel Romero defeated Ronaldo Jacare Souza by split decision. Very controversial. I mean, Romero didn't do much in the second and third. The thing with Romero is he's such a low volume striker. Even in the first, he got that spinning back fist that almost finished the fight. But he actually doesn't do much. That's the problem. He hits super hard. Another thing with Romero that's very interesting is his takedown defense, isn't as good as it probably should be, because it looks like Jacare, once he got double underhooks, was able to take Romero down quite easily. Even in the second round, there was that fence grab, and many argued that that fence grab should have given Romero 1 point off. And then in the third round, got the clinch. Jacare is able to take Romero down again, So it's really surprising. I mean, I've seen Yoel Romero defend takedowns pretty well when he gets shot at and whatnot, but when they're aiming at his legs, I've seen him sprawl and whatnot. And his takedown defense looked pretty good at times. There were a couple times that Jacare was going for takedowns. Romero was able to not get taken down. But yeah, I know some people gave Jacare rounds 2 and 3 and Romero round 1, 29-28. I know some gave Romero 10-8 first round, so it could have been a draw. It definitely could have gone either way as the fight goes. Romero's probably going to get the next title shot. He's beaten some really good competition. There's really no one else for him to fight. This was quite controversial, but nonetheless, I mean, I think people recognize that Yoel Romero is a very good fighter and at least a challenge to Rockhold, at least in the first and second round. Jacare, I think he'll get his title shot. I just hope he gets it sooner rather than later, because he's getting older. He's in his mid-30s. Doesn't take too much damage in his fights, but he's just a guy that, he's not getting younger, but he still has an elite level skill set. So hopefully we get to see him get a title shot. I'd like to see him fight Luke Rockhold again. Even the first time they fought, they went 5 rounds. I actually gave it to Jacare. I mean, there's Weidman, Rockhold, Romero, Jacare. And those 4 could potentially play hot potato with the title. Possibly, After that's Machida, Then you got like Robert Whitaker coming up. Derek Brunson's kind of coming up. But otherwise, I mean, you know, there aren't too many great middleweights out there that really, that's really coming up that you really think like, okay, yeah, this guy is the guy coming up. Like Whitaker's like probably the best guy coming up in the division right now. He's still young. He has youth on his side. Man, I gotta say though, these guys are giants. I mean, Jacare, Romero, Rockhold, and Weidman are freaking huge for the weight class. I think that's going to be quite apparent if like Whitaker ever fights one of these guys. Um, but yeah, but Jacare can get like Weidman next. If you want to even give him like a Uriah Hall, like a bounce back fight, you can do that or something like that. Next fight after that, Damian Maia defeated Gunnar Nelson by unanimous decision. Scorecards 30-20, 2 30-26s and 1 30-25. So there's a stat here. Nelson only landed 5 strikes in this fight, while Maia landed 150. It's funny. I actually figured in the predictions, I said Maia's the better wrestler, and he indeed showed to be just this like phenomenal wrestler at 170. His ability to take fights to the ground against elite level guys is insane. His ability to get dominant positions on elite level guys, elite, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. You know, I mean, he was able to mount, back mount Gunnar Nelson. If Gunnar Nelson got on top, Maia would find his way on top using. Maia was using a lot of the half guard reversals and whatnot to get back on to reverse Gunnar Nelson when he was on top and whatnot. Man, this is just what Maia does. There are a very few amount of fighters that could deal with this. Honestly, it's like Rory McDonald's one, but there just aren't many, that can deal with Damian Maia's wrestling. It's, he can take down wrestlers. He beats prospects. Like Gunnar Nelson. Before this, he beat Neil Magny. He beat Story when Story was coming up. Ryan LaFleur, I mean, he's beating prospects. He still does it, and the way that Damian Maia does, he uses superior wrestling, superior grappling. He can get dominant position on like anyone, once he's on the ground. And yeah, he just he made Nelson look pretty bad actually. After the fight, Maia criticized the rankings, which he probably should. He beat. There's something with like Neil Magny being high, like kind of higher ranked, beating Gaslam. Damon Maia beat Neil Magny. I think he has a right to be critical of it. Because he probably should. I mean, honestly, like his last loss is to what, like Roy McDonald. Like it's who? Nah, is it someone else too? Yeah, it's like Roy McDonald or like Jake Shields or something like that. But anyways, he's just doing work. If they decide to get Maia, I don't think they'll get Damian Maia a title shot. I would think Robbie Lawler would be a really tough matchup for Maia. I can see Lawler defending takedowns and beating them up on the feet. I think Condit would actually have a really hard time with Maia. I think Maia can get him down actually quite consistently. If not like a title shot, you can give him like a Tyron Woodley, who's promised a title shot, or maybe the winner of Stephen Thompson versus Johnny Hendricks next. Gunnar Nelson, lost to Rick Story, got a couple wins after that, lost to Maia. He's just I don't know what to say, you know? Like, I think everyone's seen top 10 potential in him. This is a big step up in competition for him, though. Granted, you know, his ground game's phenomenal, but Maya's is even more phenomenal. But Nelson, his auxiliary tools too, those need some work. And once again, maybe, just maybe, he should try and get down to 155. He should just fight more mid-tier guys of the division. Next fight with that, Max Holloway defeated Jeremy Stephens by unanimous decision. Somewhat tepid fight, you know. I think Holloway was too fearful of the power. Stephens was trying to go for takedowns that weren't there. Holloway managed to even take Stephens down and get some ground and pound going on. Otherwise, I kind of felt that Holloway, and he even seemed to agree himself with his self-assessment after the fight, that yeah, the thing with Holloway is that he probably could have done more and got the finish. I don't think it was in too much danger against Stephens. Um, in a perfect world, you know, like Holloway's got a really good win streak going on, but I think Frank Edgar's ahead of him as far as the lightweight pecking order goes, or featherweight pecking order goes. And one more big win for Holloway would probably be like what he needs. You know, he should probably get like Ricardo Lamas would be a good fight for him, or maybe even Frankie Edgar. Jeremy Stephens, he can get like maybe Chad Mendez even, who's coming off a loss, or like Hakran Diaz, who's actually coming off a win. But I think it'd be a good matchup. Ranking wise, they're like the closest guys that some of the more closer that Steven hasn't fought yet. Got into the prelims. Uriah Faber defeated Frankie Saenz by unanimous decision. Um, you know, I figured Frankie Saenz would have a good showing here, but ultimately Faber got the win. Faber had a hard time taking down Saenz. He got that really nice head kick, to those elbows on Saenz. Because Saenz is really good. He has really good wrestling. He has really good pressure too, but he's more of a pressure wrestler. Like his stand up still needs some work. And with against a guy like Faber, who's a really good wrestler, really good scrambler. I didn't think that Saenz' game really worked well stylistically against Faber's. And Faber, still has good stand up. He was using a lot more variety in the first and second round. The third round, he kind of dropped that round. Looks like he kind of tired himself out. But managed to get the win over a tough guy. With that said, now that Faber is free to fight Dillashaw, they'll probably go with that. Or like Faber versus the winner of Cruz versus Dillashaw. I can see that happening. It just Faber's, he's like the biggest name in bantamweight. Well, I don't think he beats those guys. I don't think he beats those guys, but it's definitely the most like sellable fight. I mean, there's guys like Tomas Almeida and Aljamain Sterling coming up in 135 that are really making names for themselves. But right now, Faber is like the biggest name. I'd argue bigger than the champ or Cruz. Frankie Saenz. You can just fight more. You should fight more top 10 guys. If you want to give him a Sunshao or like Caraway or someone like that. That'd be fun. With Faber, like I said, I more likely than not, I can see the UFC giving him a title shot next. Next fight with that, Tisha Torres defeated Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger by unanimous decision. Good win for Torres. It's pretty much what I expected. The biggest problem with Torres is she has no power in her strikes. She doesn't sit down on her punches. She throws these flurries that look like they hit kind of hard. He usually starts with like some sort of like overhead right or something like that. But and she moves well. Her takedown defense is solid. She's even showing some more offensive takedown ability to round out her skill set. But biggest problem with Torres is she's just not a finisher. And she's small for the weight class. She's just really small she's like 5'1". She could probably make atom weight. Jocelyn Jones Linebarger, she's a good fighter. She's solid, but she's not spectacular. That's she deserves to fight in the UFC, but someone like Torres, who's ranked and ranked for a reason, um, is almost always going to beat her, especially on short notice. With that said, with Jones Linebarger, she just get more like mid tier fighters of the division, maybe like a Felice Herrig or something like that. Heck, you can go Paige Van Zant versus Linebarger, even though Van Zant's ranked. Torres, you can give her Watterson. I think that'd be a good fight. I don't actually. You know what? I don't like that fight for Watterson very much. I think Torres kind of does what she did here against Watterson. Also, Jessica Penne, or you can do a rematch with Rose Namajunas next. Next fight after that, Warley Alves defeated Colby Covington by guillotine in the first round. Yeah, Warley Alves, man, it's just really good prospect in the division. It's you got two prospects that went up against each other. The biggest problem with Colby Covington is he's still something of a wrestler, instead of an MMA. Like he's more of a wrestler than an MMA fighter in that sense. Like that's seemingly all he has at this point. His wrestling, top control, ground and pound, and whatnot. Stand up just needs a lot of work. The thing with Warley Alves is that he's just more well rounded. His stand up's good, jiu jitsu's fantastic, and he has good takedown defense and a really good ability to get back to his feet when he's taken down. I mean, it's hard. I notice it's a lot harder for wrestlers to win via wrestling these days. There aren't too many fighters, especially newer fighters, that are content to just laying on their back. Most are trying to get back to their feet when they're taken down. It's very, I didn't expect Warley Alves to be just pinned down against Colby Covington. That's why I picked Alves to win. Now Alves just has more skills in other areas to be able to beat Colby Covington. And then Alves obviously has a guillotine to defend against takedowns as well. With that said, Warley Alves needs to step up in competition now. Let's give him the flair, Give him Ryan LaFlair. Give him one of those, like, blue-collar, tough-to-beat guys. One of those guys that, fighter at welterweight. He's going to have to work really hard, work for 3 rounds to get a finish, Ryan LaFlair versus Alves, I think, would be a good matchup. With Covington, still a prospect, you can give him like a Kenny Robertson, or heck, you can even give him Mike Pierce if you want. I think that'd be a tough matchup for Colby Covington, actually. But just more mid to lower tier guys of the division. He's still developing. He's still a developing prospect. Next fight, that Leonardo Santos defeated Kevin Lee by TKO in the first round. Now, talking about a prospect on the down, I mean, this is not a good loss. There's some losses that are good losses, and then there's some losses that are bad losses. There's some losses that are just, okay, well, he's going to learn. This is just one of those, like, there's something wrong with the development of Kevin Lee, and it needs to be examined. And I think I know what it is. I saw it in the Prazeres fight. Did not show itself in the Mutaji fight because that ended in the first round. Showed itself again here. Kevin Lee has no exit strategy whatsoever. He'll throw punches and stand still. His defense isn't good. He stands in front of his opponent. Sometimes just just without even throwing punches or doing anything. He just kind of stands in front of his opponent. But like I said, his biggest problem is he'll throw some strikes and just stand there, and he has no head movement. He needs to work on his defense really bad. He's a guy that can get countered, quite easily. And a guy like Leonardo Santos, his stand-up's improving, and for Leonardo Santos to beat Kevin Lee the way he did, good win for Leonardo Santos, It's funny because, I think he's undefeated in the UFC. Surprisingly, it really surprised me with Leonardo Santos because he's like mid-30s. He's a hulking Brazilian. He's big for the weight class. But and he is a standout as far as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu goes. But you'd think someone would be able to beat this guy. He's not like flawless or anything like that. Stand up still does need work. He's not the greatest wrestler. It's not like his opponent can't defend his takedowns, but he finds ways to win. Excuse me. Finds ways to win, and he's like I said, I think he kind of tops off as that hulking Brazilian, kind of like Tebow, Master and Duba, Prazeres, kind of like that. So there's a couple actually. He's just one of them. But yeah, just really good win for Leonardo Santos, and Kevin Lee was a bright prospect. I mean, it's not like he can't get back, but there needs something fundamental that needs work. And I can kind of see what it is already. It's defensive. It's absolutely defensive, and it's something that should be fixable. But yeah, this isn't like a good loss for his development. This was supposed to be a tough fight for him that he should defend takedowns, beat up Santos on the feet. It's something he's capable of doing. He's a good wrestler. His stand-up's not too bad, but defensively he's got some holes. It's more lower to mid-tier guys for Lee. With Leonardo Santos, I guess he should get a step up in competition. Maybe an Evan Dunham or something like that would be good for him. On the Fight Pass prelims, Magomed Mustafayev defeated Joe Proctor by TKO in the first round. Yeah, watch out for Mustafayev. I picked him to win. I thought he would win. I thought he'd win by KO or TKO, actually, if I'm not mistaken. This guy's a bad dude. Dagestani guy. Hits hard. Once he had Proctor hurt, he was not gonna let him get back, man. Some of those knees are devastating. Some of those strikes he landed on Proctor are pretty devastating. Keep watching out for this guy. He has a Sambo background too. I think he's just going to. It's onward and upward for Magomed Mustafayev. I think there's some work he needs, probably on a technical level. But he's a very violent guy, Joe Proctor is who he is. Like, seriously, he's jack of all trades, master of none. Just kind of like a guy that's there. Something of a stepping stone for a guy like Mustafayev, to be honest with you. I'd say Joe Proctor at best, low-level gatekeeper, That's kind of what he is at this point. If they keep him, I think he's coming off before this he had a win. Some more lower tier fighters of the division, or maybe he can test other prospects. He can beat a bounce back fight for Kevin Lee, Next fight after that, Yancy Medeiros defeated John McDessie by split decision. Man, I don't agree with this decision at all. And I picked Yancy Medeiros to win this fight. Yeah. Excuse me. Medeiros wasn't really landing too well. He'd got a good 1-2. That was his best strikes. Otherwise, McDessie would get a lot more strikes on him, get some kicks on him and whatnot. I think McDessie was getting the better of the jab. I thought McDessie should have got the win here. I thought that was pretty clear, actually. I know Medeiros dropped him in the third, and maybe that kind of swayed two of the judges or something like that. And okay, sure, if you drop him, you give him a round. Maybe you give Yancy another round. I don't know. I thought that McDessie was kind of just outstriking him. This is not the first time that McDessie lost controversial decision. He fought, Ellen Patrick in a fight that it looked like he won and then he lost. There's just something about his offense that doesn't look good with judges. I mean, honest truth. Because like I said, this is not the first time where it's like, the trained eye or people who are more analyzing are seeing, oh yeah, McDessie's totally outstriking Medeiros. Medeiros isn't hitting him very much, yada yada, you know. And then the judges, it just kind of seems like, okay, Medeiros pushing forward. He's longer, you know. I suppose. And there's something just about McDessie's offense that just doesn't look good with judges. You know, it just is what it is. Yeah, Davis didn't look that great here. I was actually somewhat high on him as a prospect, but I think he's just going to be a fun action fighter at this point. Same with McDessie. He's on a 2-fight losing streak now. I think they'll keep them both. Just give them more like action fighters moving forward. And finally, Court McGee defeated Marshall Alexander Jr. by unanimous decision. Pretty much what I thought Court McGee would do. Just blue collar. Say total. I thought he'd actually get a finish, but otherwise, Court McGee, blue collar fighter. It's not the fastest guy. He'll take Marshall Alexander down, keep him down there, lands of ground and pound. And to stand up, he's always in his face. It's Court McGee. Like I said, he's one of those. If lightweight has the hulking Brazilians, welterweight has the blue collar guys like the Ryan LaFleurs, the Mike Pierces, Court McGee's, Kenny Robertsons, and just those types. Those utter blue collar fighters. Marshall Alexander at this point will probably be cut from the promotion because it's 3 losses in a row now. Court McGee, he stays. He's something of a gatekeeper of the division. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC 194. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.